Sundays used to be her day. Ashley and I had this unspoken routine: lazy mornings, shared coffee, maybe a grocery run if we felt productive. I liked those mornings. No rush. Just the two of us existing in the same quiet space. Married life in its simplest form. But that morning was different. Subtle, but different. I remember it so vividly. I was standing by the counter, tying my work boots, getting ready to head out to the auto shop. Ashley was by the kitchen window, her back to me, phone in hand. The sunlight poured in, lighting up the edges of her hair. From anyone else's perspective, it would have been a perfect domestic scene. Except it wasn't. In the reflection of our fridge door, stainless steel, polished to a shine the day before, I caught a glimpse of her phone screen. Just a blip. A message. One I wasn't supposed to see. Can't wait to see you again. Same place? It was from someone saved as CR, 3 letters. No emoji. No context. But the meaning? Crystal clear. For a second, I convinced myself it had to be innocent. A work thing, maybe. Or a group hangout. But in my gut, I already knew the truth. I knew it in the way my stomach sank, in how the air seemed to thin out around me. I played it cool. Hey, babe, I said, keeping my tone light, casual. Who's CR? She didn't miss a beat. Didn't fumble or hesitate. Just smiled, slipping her phone into her back pocket like it was nothing. Oh, just an old college friend. You wouldn't know him. We're grabbing dinner next week. A quick catch-up. Thought it'd be nice to take a little break. That word. Break. It landed heavier than she realized. She meant it as a break from routine, sure. But to me, it sounded like she was taking a break from us. From me. I gave her a nod, let her words settle like dust. Smiled even. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Start a fight over a single message? Demand answers I wasn't ready to hear? No. Not yet. But as I laced up my boots, as I grabbed my keys, I kept thinking about that message. About CR and his not-so-subtle invitation. The casual way Ashley dismissed it. The ease with which she lied. It wasn't the message itself that hurt the most. It was how easily she made it sound like I was overthinking. Like my gut reaction was an overreaction. That's when it hit me. This wasn't the first lie. It was just the first one I caught. On my drive to the shop, I replayed the conversation over and over. The more I thought about it, the more things started clicking into place. The late nights at work that seemed to pop up out of nowhere. The second phone she suddenly needed for clients. The new clothes, flashier, tighter, more calculated. At first, I chalked it up to normal life changes. Maybe she wanted to feel good about herself. Maybe the extra hours at work were just that work. I didn't want to be that husband. The paranoid, controlling type who questions everything. But seeing that message? That changed things. Now every little thing felt like a breadcrumb. When I got to the shop, I tried to shake it off. My hands needed to stay busy. Oil changes, tire rotations, brake pads, all of it routine, mind-numbing work that usually helped clear my head. But not that day. That day, my mind was elsewhere. I kept picturing Ashley's smile. Not the real one. Not the smile she used to give me when she was genuinely happy. This was her customer service smile. Polite. Practiced. Fake. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how often she'd been using that smile with me lately. At lunch, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone. Us at the lake last summer, grinning like idiots. Her birthday dinner 2 years ago. Back then, her smile reached her eyes. It was real. Unfiltered. When was the last time she smiled at me like that? I couldn't remember. For the rest of the day, that question haunted me. When I got home that evening, everything seemed normal on the surface. She had dinner-ready pasta, garlic bread, her usual comfort food move. She asked about my day, laughed at the right moments, filled the silence with small talk. Anyone else would have thought we were fine. But I wasn't listening to her words. I was watching her. Every glance at her phone. Every time her fingers twitched toward her pocket when it buzzed. Every calculated gesture. It wasn't paranoia. It was instinct. Later that night, as we lay in bed, I could feel the distance. Her body was close, but she wasn't with me. She scrolled through her phone, screen dimmed, angle turned slightly away. I stared at the ceiling, pretending not to notice. But I noticed everything. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I needed more than a text reflection to go on. But the seed of doubt was planted. And once it's there, it grows roots fast. The next morning, she left early, said she had errands to run before work. I stayed back, sipping coffee, staring at the fridge door where I first saw that message. Funny how a reflection could show you more than the person standing right in front of you. That was the first sign. And I knew deep down it was only the beginning. After that Sunday morning, things didn't go back to normal. Not for me, anyway. It's funny how one tiny crack can make you look at the entire foundation differently. Things I brushed off before, they came rushing back, louder this time. Like they'd been patiently waiting for me to wake up. Ashley's been a smooth liar, I'll give her that. Not a brazen, bold-faced kind of liar. No, she's more subtle. Strategic. The kind who blends half-truths with just enough charm to make you second-guess your own instincts. For months, there had been signs. Small things. Easy to ignore when you wanted to believe the best about someone. It started with her work calls. She never used to bring work home. But suddenly, there she was, pacing the living room on speaker, talking about client strategies at odd hours. I'd be sitting on the couch, trying to watch the game, and there she'd be 5 feet away, murmuring into her phone with a smile that wasn't meant for me. At first, I thought it was ambition. Maybe she was angling for a promotion. Maybe the extra hustle was for us. But then came the second phone. When she brought it home, she waved it off with a breezy excuse. Oh, it's just for clients. Helps keep work separate, you know? Separate. That word again. At the time, I believed her. Or rather, I wanted to. Who questions their spouse over a work phone? You don't want to be that guy. The insecure husband. Jealous. Paranoid. But then the second phone started following her everywhere. To the bathroom. To bed. It never left her side. Always on silent. Always face down. The wardrobe change was next. Ashley's always had great style. She knew how to look good without trying too hard. But lately? Lately it was different. The outfits got tighter. More revealing. Not in a confident, self-love kind of way, no, it was curated. Intentional. She started wearing things that made me raise an eyebrow. I remember the first time she came downstairs in a dress I hadn't seen before. Short. Black. High slit. New dress. I asked, trying to sound casual. She laughed. Oh, this old thing? Just felt like dressing up. For a grocery run? She'd been reinventing herself, slowly, and I hadn't noticed until it was staring me in the face. The subtle makeup upgrades. The sudden obsession with Pilates classes she'd never cared for before. The constant scrolling through Instagram influencers who looked nothing like her usual feed. Piece by piece, the puzzle was assembling itself. Then came the solo trips. Ashley's not the type to travel alone. We always made trips together, long weekends, mini vacations. But out of nowhere, she started booking these getaways. Always last minute. Always for work conferences or personal resets. It was the first time she ever said no when I offered to join her. I really just need this time to myself, Dom, she'd said, using the gentle, patronizing tone reserved for toddlers and clueless husbands. You understand, right? Sure. Of course I understood. When the location sharing went off, that's when it clicked. Ashley and I had always shared locations. Not because we didn't trust each other, but because it was convenient. Safety. Logistics. The first time I noticed she'd disabled it, she blamed a phone update glitch. The second time, she didn't bother explaining. Around the same time, our photos started disappearing from her social media. The happy couple posts, the anniversary tributes, all wiped clean. When I asked her why, she smiled and said she was doing a digital detox. Said she was tired of the performative stuff, wanted to keep our life private. It sounded noble, even refreshing. But the timing was suspicious. Too clean. Too convenient. What stung the most was how easily she made me question myself. Every concern I brought up, she'd flip it back on me. You're being controlling. You're reading too much into things. Why are you so insecure all of a sudden? I started to wonder, was I losing my mind? Had I become the cliché jealous husband? Was this really happening, or was I just so worn down by routine that I was seeing problems where there were none? But the gut doesn't lie. One night, long after Ashley had gone to bed, or so she claimed, I sat in the dark living room, just thinking. All the little things I'd ignored were now screaming for my attention. The late work calls, the wardrobe overhaul, the solo getaways, the secrecy. A man doesn't want to believe his wife is cheating. You fight it. You rationalize. You cling to every scrap of doubt because admitting the truth means admitting your marriage is cracking apart. But there's a moment, and every man who's been here knows it, when denial dies. For me, it was that night. I didn't have proof yet. Not concrete. But instinct? Instinct was already screaming. The next few days, I started paying attention differently. When she left her phones unattended, which was rare, I'd casually glance at the notifications. She never got texts on her primary number anymore. But the second phone? That one was always buzzing. One night, I watched her in the reflection of the bedroom mirror. She thought I was asleep. She was lying there, back turned, scrolling through that second phone with a look I hadn't seen in years. Soft. Engaged. The way she used to look at me. It was crushing. But I said nothing. I needed more. So I started small. Checked our shared calendar. Looked for inconsistencies. Noticed how her client dinners always happened in the same part of town. How her supposed meetings never aligned with her office hours. I even started noting her wardrobe choices. Which outfits were for which nights. The pattern was unmistakable. She dressed differently for these work events, not business casual, not smart professional. It was dating attire. Deliberate. The final straw before I cracked was a weekend when she said she was going to visit her sister out of state. But her sister called me that same day asking if we wanted to come over for a barbecue. Clueless. She had no idea about Ashley's supposed visit. I didn't confront her. Not yet. That's the thing about betrayal, once you suspect it, you can't rush it. You have to let it reveal itself fully. I wasn't about to go in half-cocked and let her spin another lie. I needed something undeniable. I started thinking about that message again. The first one I saw. Can't wait to see you again. Same place? Who was CR? Why no full name? What was the same place? I dug into it slowly. Checked old college photos. Scrolled through her tagged posts from years ago. Nothing. No CR among her known contacts. Whoever he wasn't part of the usual circle. Which made him a secret. And secrets don't belong in marriages. I wasn't angry yet. That's what surprised me. I wasn't even hurt in the way you'd expect. What I felt was colder. Calculated. Like my emotions had taken a backseat to something sharper. I wasn't looking for a fight. I was preparing for a war. That was the difference. Ashley thought she was playing chess, moving her pieces in the dark, but she had no idea I'd started watching the board. I didn't tell anyone. Not my friends. Not my family. This wasn't about public humiliation or getting sympathy. It was about clarity. About making sure that when the time came, I wasn't doubting myself anymore. Ashley's behavior had changed. My marriage had changed. And so had I. I was no longer hoping to be wrong. I was preparing to be right. They say intuition isn't proof. But I've never been one to ignore my gut. By this point, I wasn't looking for reassurance. I wasn't hoping Ashley would suddenly prove me wrong. What I wanted, what I needed was confirmation. Something irrefutable. Not a hunch. Not a suspicion. Solid, concrete evidence. So when Ashley told me she had another business trip coming up, I didn't even flinch. She gave me the usual pitch, some vague client retreat, important networking, all the corporate buzzwords she thought sounded legitimate. I'll only be gone for a couple of days, she said, kissing my cheek like she always did before lying to me. Don't work too hard while I'm away, okay? I smiled. Played along. But I wasn't planning to sit back this time. I remembered an old memory card tucked away in my desk drawer. It was from the early days, back when Ashley used to love documenting everything, photos, videos, even security footage from the shop when she helped set up a cloud backup for me. She used to joke about how organized she was. That card had synced to her personal cloud account back then. Out of habit, I never disconnected it. That night, when the house was quiet and Ashley was already gone, I dug it out. Most of the files were old, harmless memories of us from better times. But mixed in with the clutter were folders I didn't recognize. Newer timestamps. Files that didn't belong to any family album. One caught my eye. It was a video file dated just a few weeks back. The location tag? A luxury hotel downtown. Not exactly a typical spot for a casual work meeting. My chest tightened as I double-clicked the file. It was security camera footage from the hotel's parking lot. Grainy, black and white, but clear enough to recognize faces. The timestamp in the corner lined up with one of Ashley's supposed client dinners. I watched as she stepped out of a car looking different. Confident. Excited. Dressed for someone who wasn't me. Then he appeared. Tall. Well-dressed. The same man from the blurred photo I'd seen reflected in her phone weeks earlier. CR, I presumed. What happened next punched the air right out of my lungs. He didn't shake her hand. He didn't greet her like a colleague or an old friend. He embraced her casually like it was a habit. His hand slid to her waist and she leaned into it, smiling. Then, as if on instinct, he kissed her neck. Not hurried. Not guilty. Just familiar. They stood there for a moment, unaware of the camera's quiet gaze, before walking together into the hotel. I paused the video. Rewound it. Watched it again. It wasn't a handshake. It wasn't a friendly hug. It wasn't a business meeting. It was a date. It was an asterisk Macy. Comfort. A routine they'd done before. There was no more denying it. Ashley was cheating on me. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the frozen image on my screen. The timestamp glared at me, mocking me with its precision. 2:17 p.m. Right when she'd texted me, busy with meetings. I'll call you later, Reheart. I don't know what I expected to feel. Rage, maybe? Or heartbreak. But what washed over me was different. It was cold. Clinical. Like watching the last piece of a puzzle click into place. I wasn't surprised anymore. What hurt wasn't just the betrayal. It was how methodical she'd been. How easy it was for her to lie, to live this double life right under my nose. I closed the laptop, exhaling slowly. There it was. Proof. Not hearsay. Not suspicion. Proof that would stand up in any courtroom, any confrontation, any inner doubt I had left. I didn't rush to confront her. That's not who I am. Confrontations give cheaters room to twist the narrative. Cry. Apologize. Spin stories about mistakes and confusion. No, I wanted her to sit with the weight of her own actions. But I also wasn't going to let myself be blindsided anymore. I spent that night going through every piece of data I could find. Emails, social media, credit card statements. Every detail painted the same picture. Dinners charged to places we never went together. Rideshares from addresses she'd never mentioned. Even her calendar events had subtle shifts, meetings that conveniently overlapped with this man's city visits. The more I found, the less emotional I became. This wasn't some one-off lapse in judgment. This was deliberate. Calculated. By morning, I had a neat little folder on my desktop labeled simply Ashley. Photos. Videos. Receipts. The kind of folder that ends marriages. But still, no confrontation. Not yet. I decided to test her one last time. A simple conversation. A chance to see how far she'd go to protect her lie. That evening, I called her. Hey, babe, I said, keeping my tone light. How's the conference? Oh, it's good, she replied, cheerful as ever. A little boring, honestly. Lots of panel talks. You'd hate it. Her voice was smooth. Practiced. Not a single crack. Who's there with you? I asked, feigning casual interest. Oh, just the usual team. You know, Michelle, Darren, a couple of new hires. Michelle had just posted an Instagram story, a boomerang of her wine glass from a beach resort in Florida. Darren's location showed him still in town. Neither of them was at this fictional conference. Ashley didn't know that I knew. I smiled into the phone. Glad you're having a good time. Miss you, she said, sweet as poison. Can't wait to be home. Home. The word tasted bitter now. When the call ended, I sat back, staring at the ceiling. There was no satisfaction in catching her lie. Just a hollow confirmation of what I already knew. I wasn't looking for justice. I was looking for closure. The proof was there. Undeniable. Irrefutable. Ashley's betrayal wasn't speculation anymore. It was fact. And now the real work could begin. I wasn't going to react emotionally. No shouting matches. No begging for honesty. I wasn't going to give her the power of seeing me broken. This wasn't a fight I planned to lose. She had made her moves in the dark, thinking I was blind. Now it was my turn to move in silence. I powered down the laptop, stood up, and looked around our home. It didn't feel like ours anymore. It felt like a crime scene. But soon, very soon, Ashley would walk right into the truth and there would be no more hiding. No more lying. Only consequences. After watching Ashley and her secret life unfold on my screen, you'd think I'd explode. You'd think I'd confront her right there and then blow it all up with some grand scene. But I didn't. Because something in me had shifted. It wasn't anger that drove me anymore, it was clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. Ashley thought she was playing chess, sneaking around, making her moves behind my back. What she didn't realize was that I'd already flipped the board. Quietly. Methodically. Long before she ever booked her little hotel rendezvous. See, while she was busy building her lies, I'd been building my safety net. It started small. Subtle. First, I separated our finances. Nothing drastic. Just a few business expenses I moved under my name only. The auto shop's ownership paperwork? I had it restructured, shifting key assets into a trust that only I controlled. On paper, it was airtight, routine business strategy. But in reality, it was my firewall. Next, I safeguarded my personal funds. Every spare dollar found its way into accounts Ashley couldn't access. Retirement, emergency savings, even a brokerage account she didn't know existed. Brick by brick, I was fortifying my side of the wall. I'd watched too many guys get blindsided in divorce. Blindsided by women who cheated and then took half of everything on the way out. Not me. Not this time. I met with a lawyer. Quietly. A referral from an old customer. Discreet and ruthless. Over black coffee in a dim office. I laid it all out. I don't want revenge, I told him. I want protection. For me. For what I've built. He nodded, already knowing the type of case before I even finished. Start the process now, I said. But don't file anything yet. Let her keep playing house a little longer. In the weeks that followed, I operated like a man on a mission. Every day felt like a step closer to the inevitable, but I was in no rush. Patience was power. At home, I played my part flawlessly. Ashley had no clue. She'd waltz through the front door after her meetings, kiss me on the cheek, smile like she wasn't betraying every vow she ever made. And I'd smile back, cook dinner, talk about mundane things. The weather, bills, weekend plans. All the while, the truth sat quietly in my desk drawer. The video footage, the receipts, the files labeled Ashley. A slow-burning fuse waiting for its moment. One evening, as she prattled on about some upcoming project, I sat across from her at the dinner table, watching her lips move. It was surreal, like watching an actress forget her lines but trying to bluff her way through the scene. I wondered if she even realized how much effort it took to lie so casually. Did she believe her own script? Or was she just hoping I wouldn't notice the cracks? Either way, it didn't matter. She was already cornered. She just didn't know it yet. Behind the scenes, I made subtle changes. I stopped updating her on business matters. Stopped including her in decisions about the shop. What once were our discussions slowly became my choices. She didn't notice. Too busy with her secret life. When she left town for another conference, I took the opportunity to make my final preparations. I rented a modest apartment closer to the shop. Small, practical, mine. A space untouched by her lies. I didn't make a big deal out of moving my things. Piece by piece, I cleared out what mattered. Clothes, important documents, tools, keepsakes she'd probably forgotten existed. By the time she returned from her little getaway, most of my life had quietly vanished from our shared home. I didn't want a scene. I wanted her to come home and feel it. The absence, the shift, the truth. On the kitchen table, I left a single photo, a printed still from the hotel footage. Ashley, in the arms of CR, timestamp clear as day. No note, no accusations, just the image of her betrayal staring back at her. It was poetic in a way. All the lies, all the secrecy, reduced to a single moment frozen in time. I didn't answer her calls that night, or the next. The silence was deliberate. Let her sit with the weight of it. Let her realize that while she thought she was managing the narrative, I'd already turned the page. For once, the silence wasn't suffocating me. It was freeing. This wasn't a confrontation. It was an exit. A quiet, calculated exit. As Ashley scrambled to piece together what had happened, calling, texting, reaching out through mutual friends, I stayed focused. No theatrics. No drawn-out arguments. Just quiet, deliberate steps toward the life I was reclaiming. Some people think revenge needs to be loud, explosive, but I've learned that sometimes the most devastating moves are the quiet ones. The ones where you simply remove yourself from their reach. I wasn't playing her game anymore. She could keep the lies. I had the truth, and soon she'd have to face it. Alone. You'd think the hardest part was finding out. Seeing it. Watching the person you built a life with in the arms of someone else. But no, the hardest part was pretending nothing had changed. Ashley still thought she was in control. Still thought she had me wrapped up in this neat little box of ignorance. And that's what made the next move so satisfying. Reversing the script. While she was indulging in another weekend business retreat, a phrase that had lost all meaning by now, I put the final part of my plan in motion. It was a strange feeling, packing up the house we shared. Not rushed, not emotional, methodical. I wasn't salvaging memories. I was reclaiming my space. I moved into a small rental near the shop. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. For walls that didn't echo with lies. It felt clean. I left the suburban house empty. Hollow. The home she had so carefully staged for appearances was now just a shell. Furniture untouched. Closets half empty. Drawers eerily silent. On the kitchen table where we used to eat dinners, laugh, and plan for a future I now knew was a lie, I placed it. One photo. A still frame from the hotel footage. Ashley. Her arms around CR, his hand on her waist. lips grazing her neck, the timestamp bold in the corner. No words. No dramatic letter. Just the undeniable truth. It was my final act of quiet defiance. I didn't wait around for her reaction. There was no need. I already knew how the script would play out. The beauty of silence is it forces people to confront themselves. While Ashley believed she was controlling the narrative, I had already stepped out of her story. That weekend, I turned off my phone. No messages. No calls. No desperate explanations. I worked late at the shop, the familiar scent of oil and grease grounding me. My guys noticed I was quieter than usual, more focused. They didn't ask. Good men know when not to pry. But when Monday morning came, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Missed calls. Voicemails. Texts. Ashley. At first, her tone was curious. Hey babe, where are you? You left in a rush. Then came the irritation. Dominic, answer your damn phone. This isn't funny. Then the panic. I don't know what's going on, but please, just talk to me. By noon, the messages turned desperate. Dom, I'm begging you. Please don't do this. Let's talk. I didn't respond. Why should I? She'd had every chance to talk. To be honest. To choose us. But she'd made her choice. And now so had I. Over the next few days, the silence continued. Ashley reached out through mutual friends. Sent messages through my family. Even came by the shop. But I didn't break. This wasn't revenge. This was closure. Every time my phone buzzed, I was reminded of the role I had been playing, the naive, trusting husband. But that role was retired now. I wasn't the one being blindsided anymore. People around us started to notice. Our so-called friends. Neighbors. The small-town whispers began. But not from me. I didn't say a word. Because here's the thing about the truth, it doesn't need a spotlight. It reveals itself eventually. Ashley's affair started unraveling on its own. Mutual acquaintances began to notice her little business trips were suspiciously personal. Photos started circulating. Rumors turned into confirmations. I didn't have to lift a finger. The man she'd risked it all for, this CR, began to pull away. Reality has a way of doing that. Affairs thrive in the shadows. But when dragged into daylight, they lose their allure. From what I gathered, CR wasn't interested in complications. The moment things got messy, he distanced himself. Ashley was left clinging to a fantasy that was crumbling by the day. It was poetic, really. While she scrambled to hold onto her facade, I was already rebuilding mine. The auto shop became my sanctuary. I expanded our client base. Focused on new contracts. Bought out a small competitor's lot in a quiet suburb. Business was good. My focus was sharper. For once, my life wasn't orbiting around Ashley's chaos. And the best part? I didn't need to burn everything down to start over. I simply walked away. People often expect fireworks when a marriage falls apart. Screaming matches, dramatic exits, public shaming. But real power? Real power is walking away quietly. Knowing you've already won. Ashley remained outside that new life, not because of revenge, not because I hated her, but because I had chosen myself. For the first time in years. When the divorce papers were finally served, it wasn't dramatic. Just a knock on the door. A thick envelope. Legal, clinical, final. She signed. What choice did she have? Our friends eventually got the full picture, not from me, but from the unraveling of her own lies. Some reached out expressing their shock. Others stayed silent, uncomfortable with the fallout. I didn't hold grudges. I just let go. Because here's the truth, betrayal doesn't define you. Your response does. Ashley thought she was in control. That she held the strings. But in the end, she was just tangled in her own web. And me? I was free. The day the divorce was finalized, I didn't celebrate with some wild night out. I went back to the shop, wiped down a few engines, poured myself a quiet drink, and sat in the stillness of my new place. No more lies. No more pretending. Just me. That was enough. For now.